Greetings, one and all, to the most cursed, most cringiest corner of the internet. A YouTube channel content creator, actively alienating everyone in both the analog and digital world. Well, welcome and good evening, you wonderful dice of all alignments. I am Lunar D8. My apologies. We lost sight of them. A single man thought to be an associated assisted in her escape. Judging by his possession of a stun gun and his driving skills, he's no amateur. I see. Thank you. What a shame, Okanogi. Shall I take this as your answer? Letting her get away was your blunder. It has nothing to do with me. I do wish to prepare some matcha for you as well in the near future. The next time you're in Kyoto, please stop by. I'm going. Oh, are you leaving already? I could offer you some chazuke first. I have no idea what that is. Cackle noises. With her back still facing Okanogi, she laughed softly, making old bitch noises, but with an increasingly shrill and hateful tone, using that as a substitute for a sharp parting remark. Is she like a hag from like D&D? I mind. I went from thinking Dungeons and Dragons to, boobs and bulges. Just as she stopped laughing, her features suddenly changed to look like a demon's. But because her back was facing him, Okanogi couldn't see that expression. Okanogi watched her go, laughing coolly. His secretary whispered over his shoulder, "Are you sure about this? My Lady Ange is our company's primary stockholder if the Sumadara family becomes her guardian." I get it, but you know we're the world-famous Ushiromyas. We can't let them take us lightly. Still, it looks like that guy managed it pretty well. All that's left is to let Anji-chan do as she pleases. I'm counting on you, Amakusa. Kasumi-sama? The escaping car was a rental. The license plate they displayed was a fake. We're clearly dealing with a pro. They'll probably abandon the car. Pursuit will be difficult. Should we have the police chase them? Yes. Shall we have them search for our runaway daughter? They are getting paid with our taxes, so the police must be of some use every once in a while. Ho, ho, ho. When I left the mansion, I boldly told Mother to leave it to me, didn't I? Do you intend to embarrass me further? It looks like it might be better for me to serve some matcha for everyone at once, doesn't it? Our underground tea room is cramped, so you'll have to wait in line. No, we will search with everything we have. She really is a cute kid, just like Nason, especially the way she freewheels and does as she pleases. Now I can't see anything but Nason. I'm truly looking forward to it. If only I could invite Nason's daughter to my tea room, right? Ho, 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 ho. Ho. The Sumadara family sure moved quickly. Did Okanogi-san sell me out? You're joking. He's my client. If he'd sold you out, he wouldn't have hired me, right? I guess that's true. So that's why you got off the elevator at the 3rd floor. Him having a car waiting in the underground parking lot was just too convenient. I figured Okinogi-san sold me out, though I guess by now it's impossible to prove whether there was an ambush set up in the parking lot or not. I see. That poor president guy. Looks like you don't trust him a bit, lady. That car in the basement was mine. Huh? He was talking about you, Amakusa. I freaked when the elevator came and was empty. I wonder what would have happened by now if I hadn't been listening in on their radio. So what's going on? If I'd obediently believed Okinogi-san and gone to the parking lot, there would have been no need for me to do that jump off the third floor? Pretty much, yeah. Well, it turned out okay in the end. What the hell? If I hadn't suspected President Okinogi, I could have easily escaped without getting caught in a tough spot. President Okinogi might have sold me out. No, since paranoia told me that it was better to assume that he'd sold me out, I supposed and concluded that he sold me out. Because of my inability to believe in him regardless of his truth, my truth became he sold me out. I thought back on President Okinogi's words. Can you really call truth without certainty truth? Truth can change completely depending on whether you have love or not. In the end, perhaps truth itself doesn't exist. There are as many interpreted truths as there are people who speak of the truth. If I can't accept something that fluid as truth, where does the truth that I really want to find exist? And is it something I'll be able to see with my eyes? Even if someone sticks the truth right in front of me and says it's the truth, I might not be able to see it. Without love, it cannot be seen, huh? This fragment of yours is very lively. It doesn't bore me. You told me something. You commanded me to search for the truth of 12 years ago. But there's something I'm not getting. What's that? What is truth? There are as many truths as there are people. There are as many interpretations as there are people. And those can be twisted by opinions and changed indefinitely. Is truth really that unfixed and vague? That's right. Truth is unfixed. It can be like a particle or like a wave, and it can hold conflicting forms at the same time. You are free to believe that the cat in the box is alive or dead, but the truth is very delicate. It can change its appearance just by being observed. You're talking about stuff like Schrodinger's cat box. Nonsense. If you open the box, you learn the truth. Discussion about what happens before you open it is just armchair theory, and that's right. And yet, in order to deny that abstract theory, you need to open the box. It is impossible to negate any idea about the contents of a box that cannot be opened. This is what truth is. As long as truth isn't denied, it keeps its form. That's right. As long as truth isn't observed, it keeps its form. In other words, if it isn't exposed, any reckless statement can suffice as truth. Yes, even if they contradict each other, endless ideas can exist as truth at the same time without being negated. So even something as screwed up as my family being captured by the Rokkenjima witch and shut up 12 years ago for all eternity can exist as truth as long as we don't know what happened 12 years ago. This witch called Beatrice forcibly made room for endless imaginings in the Rokkenjima of 12 years ago, enveloping all of it inside a cat box. Everything inside the unopenable box is truth. That's right. We don't know what happened on that island, so it becomes endless. That's assuming no one opens it up. I just have to wrench it open. But that box was closed up 12 years ago, and I don't even know where it is. Even if I visit Rockinjima, just what can I learn about what happened 12 years ago on that desolated island? Who knows? I wonder what you could learn. This is something that can only be done by the person who is able to walk around freely in the world of 1998, 12 years in the future. The final witch, Angie Beatrice. Ellipses. Beatrice's game board lasts 2 days, from October 4th, 1986 to the 5th. In other words, you're a piece who can move freely outside her game board, and even Beatrice cannot influence the future that lies outside the game board. If you say it like that, it sounds like I'm a pretty overpowered piece. The future 12 years ago in which you are placed certainly is distant. However, the further a piece is placed in the future, the stronger power it holds. I told you, didn't I? The truth changes its appearance when it is observed. Come to think of it, I heard something like that once. Even if one day all of a sudden a star in the constellation Centaurus were to explode, the light from that explosion would have to cross 4.4 light years, so it would take 4.5 years to reach the Earth. That's right. In other words, even if the sun in Centaurus had already died, people on Earth won't be able to perceive that fact for 4.5 years, because no method of perception exists that is faster than the speed of light. When we learn that the sun in Centaurus has exploded, we Earth people will paint over our history of 4.5 years ago with a new truth. We will revise history of a new fact that it exploded 4.5 years ago. However, for the 4.5 year period until we learn that, despite the fact that it has already died, the mistaken truth that the sun of Centaurus still exists will be able to exist as truth. The truth of the future wins against the truth of the past. That's right. By itself, the Rockinjima accident gave rise to nothing but suspicion of a conspiracy involving Aunt Ava and the Ushiromiya family assets. But later on, it was dramatized and linked to the cult, and the conspiracy was painted over by the legend of the witch. Even though it was clambered over as a conspiracy at the time of the crime. Later on, strange occult theories, which claimed that it was the work of the witch, ran rampant and began to paint over the truth of October 5th, 1986. The conspiracy theories will probably be forgotten over time, and only the more bizarre and impressive witch theory will continue to remain as superstition, eventually covering up the conspiracies. That's right, the false truth that exists before the light from an exploding star reaches Earth is almost like the conspiracy theory, which is a human theory, the wine bottle with a letter in it that drifted ashore several years later, the message bottle, painted over that theory and made things return to the occult theory, which is a witch's theory. That's right, a witch didn't exist during 1986. The witch took control of Rockinjima because she was observed several years later by us humans of the future thanks to that message bottle. A small revision is necessary. The witch could have existed even during 1986, as one of many endless possibilities that can exist. Certainly, she'd disappear if she were observed, so she curls up inside the box. The cat box. That's what makes the message bottle so nasty. The witch tried to get out of the box. She made it so that she'd be observed, weeding out possibilities that conflicted with the witch theory. In other words, to make it impossible to negate her, she negated all possibilities other than the witch theory. What the hell? So in other words, Beatrice satisfied the devil's truth with a frontal attack, and that was part of the witch's plan from the beginning. The message bottle is information observed in the future after 1986. It cannot be observed by Beatrice or Battler. It can only be observed by Angie Beatrice. I really didn't want to investigate the message bottle. After all, reading that would be like listening to the witches say. I thought the witch theory was just a crazy fantasy, so I thought of it as nothing more than a waste of time. But Okanogi-san told me you can't see things in 3 dimensions with only one eye. You mean that while looking at it from the viewpoint of denying witches, you must also look at it from the viewpoint of accepting witches. That's a correct way of thinking. The number of viewpoints is like a denominator. If you have one viewpoint, the mystery in the numerator doesn't decrease in the slightest. However, the more your numbers of viewpoints increases, the more the mystery begins to be divided. I understand. There was a message bottle that washed up on the neighboring island several years after the crime. That passed into the hands of the dilettante. I made an appointment with him just in case. I was able to hear Aunt Ava say from Okanogi-san, next up is the witch's say. Why don't I listen to Beatrice's say? Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. 3 months left to live.